Hello, church. Hope you're having a great week this week. Welcome to 5, 5, and 5. 5 points in less than 5 minutes. We're focusing on love and unity this year here at the Hartsville Church of Christ. And we're telling everybody to love this church. Sometimes it's difficult to love your fellow church members. And sometimes as you look around, it seems like you're doing more than others are doing. It's easy to get down and get a little discouraged because it seems that others are just not carrying the load. And we're not just that body. Everybody's doing their part. And we can get down. Sometimes we get down discouraged because we do things and we serve the Lord and it seems like no one recognizes it. Well, a lot of reasons why we get discouraged and we get down. So I want to share with you 5 things from the book of Hebrews. When you get down, if it's this week, or in the weeks to come as you work with each other within the church, and as you look around and think maybe no one else is carrying the load like you are, remember this passage in Hebrews chapter 12 beginning. Now here's point number 1. The text begins, therefore, we also, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses. The book of Hebrews was written to some people who were really getting discouraged. And the writer of Hebrews understood that. And so he wrote this book to try to encourage them and strengthen them. And one of the ways that he does it is give us these marvelous words. And in this first point, he says, don't forget the great men and women of Hebrews 11. Now, this is in Hebrews 12. These were men and women of great faith. These were men and women who were willing to shed the blood. These were men and women who would give their life for the Lord. And he says, those people didn't quit. You go back and look in the Bible, some of those great servants of God, and they didn't quit. They didn't give up when it seems like they were the only ones and things were really tough in their life. And he says, when you get in that situation where you get down and discouraged and you want to quit serving the Lord, you remember that there are a lot of great characters in the Bible you can look at and you can see that they even shed their blood and were willing to die, still stayed faithful. Second point, I'll continue reading. Therefore, we also, since we're surrounded by so great a cloud of witness, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily ensnares us. Point number 2, you got to get rid of the weights. Many times we get discouraged is because we got some weight. He specifically mentions here maybe a sin in our life. We can't run the Christian race and run it effectively. We've got something holding us back and something weighing us down. So he says, you look at those great men and women in the Bible who endured all kinds of things. He says, there may be some things in your life that you need to deal with that's holding you back and getting you discouraged like you are. Third point, continue reading in verse 1. He says, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. The Christian race is a marathon. It's not a 100-yard dash. And so point number 3 is simply this. We're in a race. It's a race that is a marathon that we endure. Sometimes I like to think of it as a marathon with hurdles about every 10 yards. We have to understand that about the Christian race. It's not something we run in a month or we run in just a year, but it's something that we pace ourselves and we have endurance as we run the long race of serving our Lord. Point number 4. That's found in verse 2. And point number 4 is this. He says, yes, when you get down and out, you need to look at all the great men and women of the Bible who were willing to die for the Lord. But there's a great example in that. And that is, he says, you look to Jesus. Notice, looking unto Jesus, the author and the finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. For consider him, Jesus, who endured such hostility from sinners against himself, lest you become weary and discouraged in your souls. The great men and women of the Bible had tremendous faith and endured great things. But the writer says if you really want to deal with discouragement as you serve the Lord, you look to Jesus. Because Jesus is the author and the finisher of our faith. Isn't that great? Our Lord didn't quit on us. Our Lord was a finisher. Think about it for just a moment. What if Jesus had given up on his mission like sometimes we give up? I mean, if Jesus had been like a lot of us in the Garden of Gethsemane, he'd have said, I've had enough. Father, send 10,000 angels. I want to come home. I quit. But there in the Garden of Gethsemane, he didn't quit on us. Jesus on the cross said, it is finished. There on the cross, Jesus didn't quit on us. If he'd been like a lot of us, we'd say, wait a minute, this pain is too much. I'm so tired and I'm so weary. I've had enough and I quit. But Jesus didn't quit on us, and we shouldn't quit on him. And point number 5, it's in verse 4. He says, you have not yet resisted the bloodshed, striving against sin. He says this is the real reason why, even though we may get discouraged and disappointed, we don't quit and we don't give up, is because we've never shed one drop of blood for the cause of Christ. I don't know about you, but all the 49 years that I've preached, I've never shed one drop of blood for Jesus. And if we live in that kind of environment, and then we look at the Old Testament characters and New Testament characters that stayed faithful and shed their blood, and we look at Jesus that shed his blood, and they didn't quit and they didn't give up, who are we? Who are we to say, I quit, I've had it, when we have never shed one drop of blood for Jesus? Well, there are your 5 points about discouragement and not giving up and not quitting that you find in Hebrews chapter 12, verses 1 through verse 4. I hope you'll take this week, and I hope it's going to be a blessing to you. God bless you.